Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone. How do you know? Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. We are streaming. Are we streaming? We're back on the streaming.
We're so back, baby.
We're so back on the streaming.
So back.
So back.
Yeah. I have no idea what happened, but it happened. And now we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday for a
nice
period.
Things.
It's all right. We'll do what we can. And I know a number of you have asked, because some of you're going to be like, AM signal? What AM signal? Yeah, we have an AM signal. In fact, that was the original signal for KSGF, I believe. I don't know, whatever. But it's 1260, and there are a lot of people that's their go-to signal. Sometimes it's simply because that is a signal that they can get where they are versus the FM signal. And with those storms, not the most recent ones, but the ones from like 3 weeks ago, that did something to the AM tower. I don't know what. There were a lot of things that took place. And
twisted the top of it. Did you see photos of it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it twisted the top of it.
Where were these photos?
I think our engineer sent them out to us.
Then I probably did. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I did. I don't know. Anyhow, it twisted the top of the tower?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like the metal framework?
Yes.
See, AM towers, whenever the difference between functionality. Now, listen, if you're somebody that really, really knows about this stuff, don't get aggravated with my very elementary bit of knowledge that I'm going to explain here. But an AM tower, if you see a tower that is for an AM signal, the signal comes off that entire tower. In fact, the base of the tower generally is, I believe it's a glass substance, because it can't go to the ground, because it's like the power, the electricity, everything, the signal is going through that entire tower. So you have to shut it down anytime that you're going to like touch it or climb it. FM towers are just there for the purpose of getting the device that sends the signal up in the air. So anytime there's an FM tower, the tower itself is just there. It's not sending out the signals, but it is there to get the thing that sends the signal out way, way high up into the air. Just a little fun fact for you. So,
see, it twisted the very top.
That's crazy.
I know. Wild times.
Yeah, that just seems like an odd thing. I mean, obviously it happened, but that has I know a number of you are asking when. I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know if ever. And I'm not saying that I have no clue. Our engineer, God bless him, has just worked overtime plus some in order to, try to keep up with all of our stations and sort of cascading effects that occurred because of that storm, which I know was like 3 weeks ago at this point, or 4 even. I don't even know how far back it was, but caused a lot of problems. And that guy is working overtime. So a huge public thank you to him.
I made him muffins today, actually.
You did? You made him muffins?
I did.
What kind of muffins?
Chocolate chip and also blueberry, because I didn't know which one he would like. I just felt bad for him, Yeah, he's been crazy busy. I haven't seen him because he's been running around everywhere.
I've been around him when I just, working on something. And every time he gets a text message, I can just sense he's like, oh, God, what now? And I thought, I don't know that there's anyone, certainly not in this building, but most people that every time he hears that text message go off, it's got to be awful, this awful feeling like what's gone wrong now. So, yeah. Muffins. All right. Well, I hope he likes chocolate chip and blueberry.
Yeah.
I like how those, you.
Well, I didn't combine them together.
No, I know. But it's like those are the only two out. You're like, well, I didn't know which one he'd like. Well, maybe he doesn't like either.
Well, hopefully.
Maybe I'm sure he loves both.
Well, that was the option at the Stratford Dollar General. That is what they had. Either that or a cake mix, and I just wasn't up for that.
I don't know why in my head you made them. Are they the mini muffins? I know exactly what you're talking about. You got them at Dollar General?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah, they're right there, even though I'm guessing most Dollar Generals are laid out the same way. Like, is it as you're going through the aisle?
Well,
when you're going.
I made them.
Oh, you did make?
Yes. I didn't make them from scratch.
Oh, I see.
That's what I thought you meant.
Oh, okay.
Because you do always make fun of me for baking and being a farm girl. So that's that's what I thought that you meant. No, but I used a mix to make them. I didn't make them from scratch.
Okay, that's cool.
So
more than I did.
Watch, I go down there later to ask him a question. They're in the trash.
Yeah, he's like, all the work I do, and he's some lousy muffins from a mix. You can't even. His lovely wife makes from scratch every year. Caramels for Christmas and these other candies that he brings around, and he's like, muffins, really?
This is what
from
you
a
got?
box?
Yeah, you didn't
From
even
a box?
make them from scratch.
You
Unbelievable.
lousy. What sort of farm girl are you? You
Not a very good one.
You need to go live back in an apartment instead of a farm.
I'm never going back.
Or a little neighborhood or something. Okay. Feel like this is a real solid way that we started the show this morning. I don't know. All right. The brief developments on the budget. Trump has gone to Capitol Hill, and I think it's fair to say that just in terms of public consumption, there's maybe a little bit of a lack of clarity that we have as to what Trump wants it done, but what does that mean? So Trump, for example, he's like, hey, and there's the stories, he's frustrated with Republicans that are slowing this down. But you've got Republicans that are, quote, slowing it down, that it's because it doesn't essentially spend enough. And then some that say it doesn't, or that it doesn't cut enough. It spends way too much, which is the truth, actually. And so you get these headlines, Trump's frustrated, he's going there to try to, get these Republicans in line. And I think it does, in fairness, leave people, well, but what is he? Is he just like, get it together? I don't care what, just get it together. Just clean your room. I don't care who does it. Just clean your room. Get it done. Get it taken care of. Is he leaning more on the Republicans that are saying, that are against meaningful cuts, or is he leaning harder on Freedom Caucus members, for example, that note that if we don't fix this now, it's never going to get fixed, which, again, that is based in reality? Or is he leaning on all sides and saying, you guys just need to compromise and come up with something in the middle? I don't really know the answer to that. I do know that there is some, what I feel is disinformation out there. And part of this, I read from it, again, Senator Hawley's piece in the New York Times, in which he characterized Trump's position that there's no touching of Medicaid whatsoever. And that is inconsistent with messaging that has come out of the White House. In fact, this piece in particular, White House defends Medicaid cuts as House Republicans remain divided. The White House is pushing back on concerns that President Donald Trump's one big, beautiful tax and spending bill will make unpopular cuts to Medicaid. Caroline Leavitt told reporters Monday, quote, the president wants to preserve and protect Medicaid for Americans who this program was intended for, the most vulnerable in our society, pregnant women, low-income families, seniors, those who truly need these benefits, and it should be going to people who physically cannot work. Per Leavitt, Trump would like, quote, to see able-bodied Americans at least working 20 hours per week, whether that is part-time or full-time, whether that's even looking for work or volunteering for 20 hours a week if they are receiving Medicaid. These are common-sense reforms to ensure that this program was intended for those who to receive those benefits. Now, this is pajamas, because one way to look at this is, well, if they do that, and you'll get these estimates from the CBO, that means that you're going to have 20 million Americans, just picking a number, that will choose not to go out and get a job, even though they're able to, not even try to get a job, not volunteer, not do anything whatsoever. And so they'll default their benefit, quote, benefit of Medicaid. And now some of us see that as that's progress. That's good. If these people are they're able to work, but they choose not to work. These are freeloaders, total freeloaders. And that is not, even if you believe in the concept of Medicaid, something that Medicaid should exist for in order to supplement freeloaders. Now, the way others see it, and to me it seems like this is how Josh Hawley sees it, that's kicking millions of people off Medicaid. And Medicaid is meant to help you. You're going to have all of these people and, this 8-year-old girl that he wrote about with the feeding tube and this poor mother and that whole family. These are the people who rely on it. And now to me, that's a dishonest presentation as to what some Republicans are trying to do. They're just wanting to go back to, the pre-Obamacare era where it covered, arguably, only those who actually need it instead of encompassing a bunch of loser freeloaders who just want to live off of everybody else. And this is where you've got the marketing of this back and forth to some degree. And you have Democrats and, again, those like Josh Hawley that are out there claiming that we cannot touch this at all. We have to leave it the way that Obama and Biden wanted it, and we cannot have any sort of work requirements. And then you have the Trump White House position and Freedom Caucus member positions that are like, no, we need to get those people off. And by the way, that's not kicking anyone off. That isn't kicking anyone off of Medicaid. Because these are able-bodied people who are choosing not to have Medicaid available to them because they're choosing not to work or try to find a job when they're able to. So that's their choice. Their choice. The one thing that is true, no one is looking to kick people off of or take away Medicaid from, single moms who are working as best as they can with sick children. And the presentation of that being the case, I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat, it is dishonest and it's immoral because you are taking the vulnerable segment of our population and scaring them for political reasons, and that is wrong. Now, evidently last night there was some compromise in one aspect of this. Mike Johnson, he's claiming that he thinks by Friday there'll be a vote in the House. Anyway, some of those quick details coming up here. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 75. Tonight we'll see a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Friday, a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon. Otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 72.
All right. I do believe I we should have one junior suite left for the Great Escape. Uh, I know this was the case yesterday, and I didn't hear otherwise, so that suggests to me that it probably is still open. Now, I know you may say, well, that's crazy, that huge resort. I can't believe that. It is the seats on the flight that we all take together that limits us to the, well, that's what really limits us. So, um, that junior suite, we reserve, the seats on the plane, and there are only 2 seats available for us left on the plane. Now that being said, if you could always, if you miss out once that gets booked, then Cam at the travel group, she could make separate arrival arrangements for you. The cost would obviously be different in order to do that. There are still possible ways. But if you're wanting, which honestly, for me, that is all part of the trip. A lot of times the traveling part, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get through this. And
There is no stress on these trips.
yeah, it's just, I
None.
mean, unless you hate flying or something,
Well,
there's
yeah,
that. But you're together, and it's part in when you land, and then you get on the bus, and everybody's, they got drinks if you want them, and so that to me is kind of part of it, all of that. Yeah, you don't have to worry about, oh, this happened or that, or oh, we got up to the ticket counter and they threw this curveball. Cam's there in order to guide everyone through that sort of stuff, and so it's just the best way to do it. So I recommend that you go ahead and one of you out there listening right now, you and whomever it is that you're going to bring with you, husband, wife, friend, whatever, you're going to be the one, and you don't, again, final payment's not due until July, so still have a period of time on that. Cam is going to be leaving the country on Saturday for a couple of weeks, and while I'm sure she'll have some access perhaps to emails, she's not going to be as readily available as she is now, and they're closed on Friday. So that really, if you want to get that nailed down and secure, I would give her a call today or tomorrow. Today would probably be your best bet, so you don't miss out. And that contact information is at ksgf.com. The Great Escape, it is November 9th through the 15th. Beautiful Cancun, Rio Palace line of resorts. And it is, everything's covered. So for 6 nights, for just under $2,000, the garden view. Actually, I think she did get that switched to an ocean view, so that's, I think, 200, like 2,100 per person,
Something
I believe,
like that.
somewhere around there. And that covers your taxes, your tipping, your airfare, food, room service. The rooms have not only many fridges with snacks and a couple beers in there usually, but you have a liquor cabinet in your room as well. All of that is completely covered, and it is right on the beach, and it's just a fantastic time. So again, don't wait on it, and we do the show there. So you're going to join us as we do the show. You can be on the show if you want. You don't have to. You don't even have to attend while we do the show. That is up to you, but just an added fun little bit of it all. The Great Escape at ksgf.com. All right, so Speaker Johnson, according to reports, has reached a tentative deal with blue state Republicans to boost the cap on SALT deduction. SALT stands for state and local tax. This is a point of contention. Some of you, if you do your own taxes, you may know this, and it depends. If standard deductions with the tax cuts that went into place during Trump's first terms got expanded to a degree. A lot of different deductions that you would take that benefited you tax-wise became irrelevant because the standard deductions got expanded. But the state and local tax, like you pay on your home, for example, once upon a time it was a high level, and as part of the simplification of the tax code and the expansion of standard deductions, that was brought down. So when you do your federal taxes, you're able to deduct that. So you you pay less in federal taxes if you pay more in state taxes. Now, I don't like that because that essentially means people who don't vote in a fiscally responsible way, people in New York, for example, and so they vote for politicians that jack their taxes up, well, then they don't have to pay as much in federal taxes as you and I do. So we essentially subsidize their bad decisions. I don't think that's good policy. I think that essentially, I don't know if you want to use the reward or not, but it doesn't. It absolves them of some of the fiscal, the fiscal hit of voting for big government tax and spend politicians. And I think that they should be responsible. I don't think that they should get a cut of paying federal taxes because they vote for people that raise their taxes locally. I think they need to feel the full brunt of their decision making. And what happens, though, is you have some of these Republicans in blue states that want the cap to be raised so that their constituents can deduct more and pay less in federal taxes. And this is where the big hoopla has been. And it's at $10,000 now. It was proposed to be at $30,000. There were three Democrat Republicans specifically that said it's got to be much higher than that. Some wanted it to be unlimited. But apparently the new number, I think it was 40,000. Did I see it? Hold on, let me look at the story here. This kind of flipped around. Trump's the proposed cap, which is up from 30,000, would be per household. This printed off funny. I think it's 40,000. So it's not anything 40 or 50,000 massive or huge, and it's not probably going to impact a lot of people. But it's the sort of compromise that I think Trump has probably navigated so that both sides can have a little bit of something. So little step forward there. And again, Mike Johnson, he's saying that he thinks by Friday that this is going to get voted on. But then there are the challenges in the Senate as well. And I want to throw just a couple of things at you after we've got to take a quick break. And then some of the other stuff I'm looking here. I do have some audio I want to play that just, to me, demonstrates why it is that so many Americans are so sick and tired of these people. And some of it's Marco Rubio, some of it's RFK Jr. in front of these committees, and RFK Jr. in particular. The interrogation that he gets, which isn't even that, but you get these Democrat senators that it is so clear that they do not ever have any interest in actually fixing problems. None whatsoever. And that is on full display when you see or hear some of these exchanges. All right, weather in a moment. First, traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 75. Tonight a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon. Otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 72.
Turnpike, Troubadours, and Treaty Oak Revival, Thunder Ridge Nature Arena, Saturday, August 30th. Your chance to win tickets at KSGF.com. There we go.
Boom.
Boom, shakalaka. All right. A couple of things that just in terms of the overall budget situation that we're dealing with up there. And this is as a constituent, I believe that Congressman Burleson can use all of the encouragement that he can get, because he is one of them that he is one that sticks to his convictions and holds to what it is that the Republican Party says they stand for. For me, this is one of the things that's most frustrating whenever you have people like Congressman Burleson and oftentimes others within the Freedom Caucus, that the party starts dogging on, well, they're holding us hostage for this or that, to do what it is that you say that you stand for. I could understand if they were the ones holding things up because they're like, no, we need to spend more. And the Republican Party is saying, hey, but that's not who we are. We're for smaller government, fiscal responsibility. And they're like, hell no, we want to spend more money because we want to be like Democrats. I would understand that. But it's the other way around. They're the ones who are like, hey, guys, remember? We go out there and get people to donate money to us because we say that we're for fiscal responsibility. Hey, you remember how it is that part of the reason we got elected was because of inflation, which was due largely to overspending, and so we're like going to change that? That's what we're supposed to do. And they get trashed on for it. Well, why can't you guys? What do you got to hold this hostage for? And to be up there every day and to have to, the days that they are in session, and to have to deal with people within your own party betraying the word of the party, betraying and then making you out to be the bad guy. So for someone like Congressman Burleson, all the encouragement that he can get, all the prayers that he can get, this is not an easy time. And this is what we say we want. Someone who goes up, does what they say they're going to do. Now, I want to play audio of Stephen Moore because, Stephen Moore, former Trump advisor, and he recently commented on his first impression that, these pesky Republicans, why do they got to hold this thing up? Until he realized something. And this is him explaining that a couple days ago.
A couple of things that seem to be blocking this bill. Mr. Trump's, we just heard, is going to be a meeting with the House Republicans tomorrow. I'll probably read the riot act from him. Let's get this done. I mean, what's wrong? I don't understand this. This stuff should be easy.
Yeah. So I was kind of angry Friday when I heard that Chip Roy was and a bunch of the budget hawks, and I'm a budget hawk myself, as you are, and we're holding this bill up. And then I looked at the details of what Chip Roy and these others were talking about, and I said, these guys are dead right. There's problems with this bill that have to be fixed, and it's not a hard fix. You mentioned several of them, Larry, the fact that why are we waiting, 4, 5, 6 years before the work requirements come in? But incidentally, we did work requirements in the 90s, remember, when Newt Gingrich was Speaker and Bill Clinton was President, and we reduced welfare caseloads by like 60%. Those people went into the workforce. There are jobs out there for people to fill. I agree. Why are we paying states 90% of the tab of Medicaid? That's the way states like Illinois and California are basically balancing their budget by putting more people on Medicaid.
Now, Stephen Moore's right, obviously, and his first impression is an understandable one, given that not only the media, but again, establishment Republicans, some in the Senate, and I know I keep harping on the Josh Hawley component here, but he has I'm telling you, if you aren't realizing this, it is Democrats, it is big government people that keep sharing on social media his guest piece in the New York Times that is presenting Republicans as wanting to steal Medicaid away from poor, vulnerable people. He's doing the bidding of the left. This is why he's been on CNN. This is why he's doing these articles in the New York, and this is why Democrats are spreading, using him. And you can talk about his motivations all you want, try to figure that out, but that's not really important right now. What's important is understanding that unfortunately has a real meaningful impact that benefits the big government people that want to stop us from fixing this problem. To the point that even people like Stephen Moore, they're like, yeah, what is going on with it? What's up with Chip Roy? Why can't these people just, get it together? Until he read what was going on. In a recent X post, Stephen Moore wrote, "You'll need a microscope to see the GOP spending cuts. The CBO projects a staggering $89.3 trillion in federal spending over the next decade. The House plan proposes a mere $1.2 trillion reduction, leading to a total of $88.1 trillion, a tiny 1.5% cut. Meanwhile, the Senate suggests an almost laughable $4 billion reduction against $521 billion in increases. $4 billion reduction against $521 billion in increases. By 2035, the GOP's, quote, starvation diet still lands us at $10 trillion in spending, up increase in spending from $7 trillion. And here's where, and this is, I'm telling you, why it is that the Republican Party has become, at least many of the Republicans, when it comes to spending, the Democrat Party. Because that, what the Senate has been pushing here is a 40% increase instead of a 50% increase. So what do they call that? They call that a cut. Oh, we're cutting things. Because instead of increasing it by 50%, we're looking at increasing by 40%. That's Democrat math. And by the way, this has had a very serious impact on public perception. And it is because of Republicans. The guys from Red Eye, they were talking about, what's his name on, I think it's CNN, and he does a lot of the polling numbers. And he was talking about how it was like 76% of Republicans said that, tax cuts, even if it adds to the deficit, don't care about the deficit whatsoever. 76%. Republicans. Now, laughably, Democrats, it was only 55%, but these are the people that pitch a fit over Doge, cutting $1 of waste anywhere, and obviously it's just because it's the opposite of what Trump wants. But what was important is he noted that while 76% or 78%, somewhere around there, of Republicans are fine with increasing the debt today, that back in 96, it was in the 20s. I think 23%. Now, I can tell you why. Because I remember that era. I was in high school, just out of high school. And you would see people, I remember going to a Royals game and seeing people wearing what was called the budget deficit reduction ribbon. Now, ribbons were a huge thing. It was a big lefty call. Oh, you wore a ribbon for everything. Ribbon for this, ribbon for that. It was, before the internet, that was virtue signaling. That was like, changing your avatar to a flag, or, that was the version, what the left would do back then. Every cause had a ribbon and they would wear it. And so I believe it was Rush Limbaugh came up with this idea to do a ribbon that was for budget deficit reduction. And it was a dollar bill or some, whatever, $10, $5 bill, and you would turn it into a ribbon and wear it around. And this was meaningful and effective because at that period of time, and this was with the 104th Congress getting ushered in, Newt Gingrich, Republicans were all about balancing the budget. Republicans were out there as a party leading the charge. They were out there explaining what the importance of making sure that we weren't spending more than we were bringing in. They were the ones out there recognizing and articulating how immoral it is to put this debt on our children and our grandchildren and their children and grandchildren, and how fiscally that is unhealthy for the country and there is no upside to it. And because of that, what was the result? You had the vast majority of Republican voters that understood it, not only understood it, but they were out there preaching the gospel. Well, the fact today that over 76% or 78, whatever the number was that he cited, of Republicans polled saying, the deficit, that's fine, it can continue to go up if tax cuts, if it costs, increase the deficit, that's fine. That is a reflection of the Republican Party that has decided to stop having, that as part of who they are. And again, he's our U.S. Senator, and because he, unfortunately, is having a meaningful impact on this all in a negative way, Senator Hawley, the fact that he is out there arguing against things like any sort of work mandates for Medicaid, cleaning that up, getting it back to the pre-Obama era, I mean, that is so far that from what the Republican Party was back in the 90s. And this is just, I'm telling you, the reality of it. That, arguably, is the reason that we have so much debt and so much, and we continue to add to the debt by way of a deficit today. Because if you don't have a party that is out there leading the charge for fiscal responsibility, then you're not going to get it. Obviously, the Democrats tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. The only reason that we as Americans had any hope of surviving such poor leadership and poor ideology was because there was an opposition party that we knew if they got in there, they would do something about it. That doesn't exist anymore. This is where a lot of people like me, while I recognize and appreciate all the fundamentally huge, massive changes Trump has made, when Trump's gone, if Republicans aren't even able to stop subsidizing able-bodied men from being on Medicaid, then there is no party of fiscal responsibility, none whatsoever. And that, you can't point the finger at Democrats, because Republicans are supposed to be the warriors against that sort of thing. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want to share a side-by-side comparison here just to hopefully highlight the starkness of the problem that we have when it comes to how some in Republican leadership are dealing with this economic downward spiral that we're in terms of budget and spending of our money. Now, I'm going to, I feel the need to explain this every time I use Josh Hawley as an example. But one, he is our senator. But two, and it's not about him. I mean, it is, but this is about the problem. And I guess I don't want the message here to get lost in what sounds like an anti-Josh Hawley thing, and he just doesn't like. As I've said, there are a lot of great things, a lot of benefits, not just to Missouri, but to the country because of Josh Hawley. And generally speaking, that is when he is interrogating government people or has in the past during hearings. He's very, very, very good at that. Unfortunately, he is leading the problem when it comes to fiscal insanity. Now, he has joined forces with Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez in taking this Kamala Harris approach to credit cards and wanting to set price controls, arguing that it is so wrong and so immoral that credit card companies, that people who utilize credit cards have to pay such a high interest that the government needs to set price controls on that interest. Now, at the time, this may have been last year, that he was joining forces with them to push this, credit card interest rates were approaching 21%. They were between 20 and 21%. And his legislation would cap it at 18%, arguing, again, that anything over that is so egregious, so fiscally irresponsible and immoral to the consumer, arguing that no one could get out of debt in that situation. No one could possibly ever dig themselves out of a hole if you're talking about 20, 21% interest rate. That government needs to take the extraordinary Soviet-style approach of putting price controls in place. Now, with that in mind, right now, debt services are the largest expenditure to you and me as taxpayers. You know what the interest rate payments are that you and I are? You know what interest rate we are paying out of our check because of the out-of-control spending? 63%. Interest payments now consume 63% of all federal income taxes paid. Now, here's where I have and this is, again, the problem. And I think that this side-by-side comparison really demonstrates it isn't just hypocrisy, it's elitism. I don't know how any person can use their power as a politician, trying to put in price controls on credit cards, which, by the way, people voluntarily use. It's their choice. Take out a credit card, use it. Arguing that it is so immoral to have interest rates as high as 20%, but then facilitate and promote budgets that require you and I to pay 68% interest rates? Well, see, but that's them. They're not bad. They're not evil. Just the private industry credit cards are. You can't have it both ways. You can't, and this is part of the hypocrisy I have with even grilling these people, and he's done it before, get these CEOs up and just rail on them because of all of the money that they're getting. And the way that they're getting it through 12% or 20% interest rates, well, they're getting 68% interest rates off us. That is unsustainable. It's dishonest. It's immoral. And what's worse is that the direction we're headed, if the Freedom Caucus members don't get their way, and what we're seeing with what arguably Josh Hawley is promoting, that's going to go up even higher than 68% or 63%. This is a massive, massive problem. And at this point, there is, in my assessment, this really is the do or die moment for our country, economically speaking. And if it becomes die moment, it's because of Republicans. Now, the Republicans trying to stop that from occurring, but those that want to not make these meaningful cuts, they are going to be responsible for this. And shame on them for ever criticizing or campaigning against Democrats or Joe Biden because of excessive spending. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Now, we talk about how government continues to screw you over, your kids over, your grandkids over, and it's not just fiscal irresponsibility and insanity. It's down to a micro level. When you die, if you do not have an ironclad, locked in legal document protecting you from government coming in and clawing away anything that it is that you think that you've left your family, because they will. They'll find any hole they can. Ozarks Elder Law. This is why you have to have them on your side. Free consultation. One flat rate. They'll tell you what it is in order, once they recognize and figure out what it is that you need in order to protect yourself from government coming in and clawing that stuff away from you. And then they let you know up front. So then you decide. So you go into it. It's not, hourly or anything, that flat rate. Don't let the fear of out-of-control costs stop you from protecting yourself and your family with Ozarks Elder Law. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. We've got lunch bunch today.
Lunch bunch!
Lunch bunch!
What are you going to get?
What am I going to get? I don't know. The menu's relatively new.
That's right.
So that's fantastic.
They partnered up with Mexican Villa, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Or they have, they have a menu item, maybe more. I forget
think there's, like,
exactly. I know
2 or
Chase
3.
explained it to it.
Yeah.
That sort of infuses Mexican Villa, Mexican food into some of their dishes. What was it, 7 or 8 different types of margaritas they're doing
Yeah, that's right.
right now
Mhm.
as well. So, the menu, if you haven't been for a while, then it'd be a great time for you to head over to Retro Metro for lunch and get yourself some delicious lunch. Also, sign up for Lunch Bunch at ksgf.com whenever you win. If you win, then you will join Sarah and me on a Wednesday at Retro Metro, and you get to bring 5 people with you. So, people always, we're just so used to it. We've been doing Lunch Bunch forever and a day, and it's because it's awesome. And then people are like, so how does this work? It's just lunch. We're just having lunch.
Yep. It's pretty simple.
Now, what can we get? Like, well, there's the menu. Have what you want. Oh.
That is typically the response.
Yeah, I know.
Is that specific? Oh.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Maggie, just 4 days ago. Emily is amazing, has helped our family over the years find multiple homes. She answers every call, every text. She gets things done and is so incredibly sweet to work with. One of the things that we've talked about before is, and she's talked about it as well, she operates different than some other realtors do, and it's just a matter of personal preference. You know, some realtors, it's all about a huge team of people, and so you might deal with your realtor in the beginning and maybe the end, but you don't have so much in between. And so when it comes to this part of the process, you deal with this person over here, and this part of the process, that person over there. It's sort of like, an octopus with lots of different tentacles, and I don't know if that's the best comparison. It's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of personal preference. But Emily is the more personal, takes care of everything for you approach. I happen to like that because you never have to fill anyone in. You know that she is in the loop on what you've done when it comes to needing a contractor in order to upgrade something on your home, in order to sell it, or whatever it is. And so if you want that more personal, handles absolutely everything approach, then Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. So I recommend, and clearly so many other people do as well. Now, we were talking about the big, beautiful bill earlier, and at one point I had read Speaker Johnson was saying that he thought by Friday this thing could be voted on, but the Town Hall News at the top of the hour, a reference, he's saying maybe even tonight, so we'll see on that. Now, in the meantime, the Senate Democrats joined Republicans to approve the No Taxes on Tips Act, which would exempt tips from taxation under the federal income tax. And I believe the vote was everybody for, no one against. It was a voice vote. Ted Cruz said on the Senate floor, with what we just saw now, the certainty that we will see no taxes on tips becomes the law of the land. As the senator from Nevada mentioned, it is included in the House's One Big Beautiful bill, and whether it passes freestanding or part of a bigger bill, one way or another, no tax on tips is going to become law and give real relief to hardworking Americans. Yeah, that's this is, let me tell you, one of the things I like about Trump. And maybe you do too, and maybe it goes without saying. This came about because I believe it was when Trump was in Vegas. And he was talking with people in the hospitality industry, and there was one gal who told him, that'd be great if we didn't have to pay taxes on tips. And he's like, you know what, that's a good idea, let's do it. And look at this. It actually happened. Has that concept ever even been talked about? Generally, the way things work is things get talked to death. And 99.9% of the time, they never happen. Oh, we got to have a committee to study this. Got to have a committee to study that. Oh, no, we have to have a committee to study what the committee found out. Well, we got to figure out what the CBO says, and then we got to figure out how it is that the CBO is screwing us over on this and giving us, information that's not accurate. Trump is like, and this is what I love about when Trump hears an idea that he's like, that's a good idea, then he's like, let's just do it. Let's make it happen. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You imagine being that person, whoever this, I tell you what would be fantastic is if, and I don't know whether they'd be able to track this gal down. I think my memory's right on this. Isn't this how this, remember this? He talked about this, right? How this came about?
So.
Yeah. Find that gal, have her at the ceremony where he signs this, whether it is standalone or part of the big beautiful bill, whichever way it happens, and have her there and be like, it's every one of you Americans that are going to benefit from this. You're thanking me, you're glad for me, but it's because of her right here. She's the one that had the idea. That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. There was a book I read once. I love stuff like that because it's not, I just love stuff like that. And let me tell you, this is why Trump connects with, resonates with average Americans, because Trump has always seen people, if a person has information or insight that can benefit his ability to do things better, he sees that as valuable. It does not matter their lot in life. He's known for, construction and building and so forth. And here's a guy that if, he would have the contractor or somebody come to him and like, well, we got to switch over the concrete and this because of that and that. And he's like, well, why do we have to do it? Well, because they say, he would go down and talk to the guys that are mixing the concrete. Not because, I demand answers, but he was curious. And this is the difference between Trump and elites. Elites see those people as just workers. That's their value. They are expenses on a spreadsheet. They are oftentimes nothing but a hassle. They're just little worker bees. But Trump sees them as valuable because they have information that can help him do his job better. It's perplexed people how somebody that is this billionaire could have such an understanding of the average worker. It's because he has always had an appreciation for the insight of the average worker and would go to the average worker and talk to them, get ideas, thoughts from them so that he could better do his job. He sees them as valuable, just as valuable, or sometimes even more valuable than some other CEO. I can guarantee you now, Donald Trump, if he did not have that perspective and that appreciation for the average person, that the no taxing on tips would be a concept no one would even be thinking about right now. But it was because of that when he gets told by some worker, this would be really helpful. And he's like, you know what? I think it's a good idea. Now, you may not agree that it's a good idea. Not everyone's going to, although apparently every Democrat in the Senate decided to jump on board and support this. I mean, hell, Kamala Harris, when she was running for president, all of a sudden was like, you know what, I got a new proposal, no taxes on tips. And then, of course, no one in the media acknowledged the fact that, yeah, you kind of stole that from Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks
Just
First.
wait, where was the outro?
I don't know.
What is with these people? No,
I was going to just ignore it.
This is radio. You don't.
Tell me your name and who you're with.
We can't see you. These TV people so used to TV.
I know. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 75. Tonight, a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Friday, a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon. Otherwise, mostly sunny with a high near 72.
I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, be they big, be they small, just questions you might have. Reverse mortgage, is that for me? I can't do that. My house isn't paid off. Well, that may not matter. Now, I don't know the answers to all these questions, but I learned a long time ago you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just need to have friends who are. Isn't that a great saying? I made that up. I'm sure someone else probably said it as well. But when it comes to home loans, I know the Carrickers and the team, and I know many of you do as well. And so maybe you are someone that has always gotten all of your financing through the bank that you grew up with, and your dad, took you there to get your first account when you were 12 years old and so forth. That's cool. That's fine. But hey, second opinion, second look never hurts, right? So even if you already figure, yep, I'm going to find out, and I already know what I got with them, check out iwantagreathomeloan.com and that team over there, and you never know. You may find that you could save yourself a lot of money long term. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Every time there is a new bit of information that comes out of that book from Jake Tapper and that other guy from Axios, I just think, I don't know. It's like, oh, that's a new one. Apparently, at one point, I guess it was his campaign, set up a fake town hall so that they could have footage for campaign ads. And so the whole thing was staged. These were, actors or Democrat probably campaign volunteers and so forth. And all of this was prepped ahead of time. It was all done for the purposes of just creating footage for a campaign ad. It was so bad, apparently, they couldn't use any of the footage whatsoever. This was a fake town hall. Not to trick them, not to prank Biden, but to just come up with, and listen, in a campaign ad, 30 seconds, obviously the entire thing isn't going to be clips of the town hall, but maybe 20 seconds at most. You couldn't get 20 seconds of usable material from a fake town hall? I tell you what I want to go back and I'm curious about. Remember when we found out they set up the fake Oval Office? Do you remember that?
That's right.
And I don't even remember what reason they gave for it at the time, but whatever reason they gave was a lie, but it had to have something to do with them handling his cognitive decline. I wonder, and I'm being serious about this, if he didn't think he was giving Oval Office addresses about certain things, because one of the challenges they had with him is that, and obviously this is something somebody in his condition does, they think they're fine. And so one of the big challenges they had was he wanted to get out there to, quote, prove that he was fine, and he just made it worse, obviously. You wonder, did he think was there like, no, I need to make an Oval Office address, I need to address the American people with this, and they put him in that fake room that was built to look like the Oval Office? Under normal circumstances, that would sound like a totally ludicrous, there's no way ever that would be reality suggestion. But all I know is that it clearly was built and utilized for something that was unusual, and all signs point to something to accommodate his cognitive disability. But yeah, that fake Oval Office that was set up, and I don't know, maybe some of you don't remember, it was I don't know that it even hit the news. Somehow it leaked out. And of course, more conservative media, which generally reports things straightforward, they were talking about it, and I think Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about it, and it was dismissed. And of course, the media is not going to cover it because it was just yet another glaring sign that something was wrong with this guy. And so the average person, I bet the average American has no idea that even existed. But yeah, if you weren't aware of it, they built a fake Oval Office.
Do you remember when Trump's aides...
Why am I not hearing you very well?
Because I have my mic down.
Oh, okay.
For audio.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Do you remember when Trump's aides found the fake Oval Office and they posted videos of it? Apparently it had like state-of-the-art lighting, just, to really improve the look of him. And there was teleprompters all over the place. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to know what it was really used for. They gave some excuse at the time that didn't, it seemed once again like a lazy excuse, and like that doesn't even really make sense, but that became typical with this administration. And given though this new revelation from the book that they had a fake town hall just for the purpose of getting just a few little snippets of material to use for campaign ads, but even Biden couldn't handle that. They got nothing out of it. Nothing. I wonder how long it went on. Was this something that they were 5 minutes into it, and he was in one of his moments in which they're like, okay, this clearly, everyone go home, this isn't going to work? Or did they work 4 hours on this thing and still couldn't get anything? I'd love to just hear. So, wouldn't you love to see that video? I wonder if that video even exists still, or if it was deleted. See, I think people would keep that. If you were one of the tech people or something like that, even if you were a believer in it, I just think there's this instinct because it's something so remarkable, and that there's somebody probably like, I'm keeping this. I'm not that they're planning on doing anything nefarious with it, but just to and maybe show people that you're close to, like, look at this. Can you believe this? I'd love to see that footage. I do want to play coming up Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough is one of the media people who has become the symbol of dishonesty in the media when it comes to covering Joe Biden, and that is because Joe Scarborough went on this rant once declaring that that Biden was the best that he's ever been. No, he's good, but in his entire career, this was the best version of Biden, he said. Those were his terms. And so that is footage that comes up quite often. Mark Halperin had him on his podcast, and he pressed him on that. So coming up here in just a couple moments, we're going to play that. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. We're going to traffic, and then 90 seconds after that, play this Joe Scarborough audio. And I'll just tell you, he basically doubles down. He's on with Mark Halperin. Mark Halperin is noting that he's essentially become the face of, or at least one of his moments, the face of media dishonesty and cover up for Biden, in which he was out there while the rest of us were watching Biden, and normal people recognized there's something wrong with this guy. Joe Scarborough, he jumped the shark by claiming not only was Joe Biden fine, but that this was the best version of Joe Biden that's ever existed. And I mean, listening to him try to explain and rationalize it's just really something else. And we'll play that audio coming up next.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 75. Tonight, a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Friday, a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 72.
Jake Tapper, rightfully so, because he's peddling a book off of his lies, and now out there reporting on the truth. And he's really been forced, as he's out there selling his book, to confront the cover up that he took part in. And here's what's really interesting about the situation that someone like him finds himself in. His publisher knows that the people that are going to be most interested in learning about this stuff are people that long suspected something was wrong with Biden, which would be Republicans and independents, and that the Democrat audience probably isn't, your average Democrat voter out there probably isn't going to be real excited to learn about how their party has lied to them and about how it was that the person they supported was in cognitive decline. So in terms of who's the audience, it's going to be more conservative Republican independents. So what does that mean? That means you have to go on podcast and some of these networks that reach that audience. Well, then when you do that, obviously, Megyn Kelly just nailed him to the wall. He was on her program to obviously promote the book, and she just really, rightfully so, nailed him to the wall over his treatment of Laura Trump and the fact that he didn't just push back when Laura Trump talked about his cognitive decline, but accused her of, well, what do you think little kids with stutter think whenever they hear you accuse him of being in cognitive decline just because he tried to shame her, tried to humiliate her. And so this the audience they need is one that sometimes requires them to be interviewed by people that are going to ask them these questions. Mark Halperin is, one of those individuals, though he's long been seen as a Democrat. There's some speculation as to where he is on the political spectrum, but he talks openly and honestly about this stuff. He had Joe Scarborough on. Joe Scarborough, much like Jake Tapper, has gone viral with many of the clips in which he defends Joe Biden in the face of reality. And one of them that was so prevalent was where he just went and he was like, listen, he was scolding the American people and saying that this is the best version of Joe Biden that has ever existed. Now, Halperin asked him about this. The attempt to respond to it was about 12 minutes long. From Joe Scarborough, but I got just a couple of minutes of it so you can get a sense and an idea of still how I think it is denial, this world that these media people live in which some of them still refuse to understand what's going on around them. And so here is part of that explanation from Joe Scarborough as to why it was he made the claim that Joe Biden was at his best ever.
May not realize you don't pay much attention to social media anymore. You don't pay much attention to criticism. But I told you for several months, I said, Joe, Biden ever has become the symbol for the right of the media and MSNBC having so much Trump derangement syndrome that you're claiming that a guy who's clearly lost mental acuity is the best Biden ever. Now, I say to people, go watch the State of the Union address. Talk to people who talked to Joe Biden. He had good days and bad days. You were with him on a good day and had conversations with him on a good day. But
on good days. On good days.
Good days.
Yeah.
Looking back at that, do you say, well, it was misleading to say best Biden ever without caveating it and say, except on the days when he's not the best Biden ever?
Well, but I never saw those days personally.
Well, you did because you saw him address a dead congresswoman and you saw him in South Carolina.
A dead congresswoman, yeah.
Yeah, well, more than that. I can show you the RNC clip reel. There were plenty of days in public when he was not the best Biden ever. And
yeah,
of course, shortly after,
he stumbled and bumbled around, Mark. I mean, yeah, he certainly did. Donald Trump did. Other politicians did. And it's actually the same case as a lot of times when I've gone in and talked to Donald Trump. We go on to Donald Trump, and I've heard the media narrative around Donald Trump, and certainly I've been very critical of Donald Trump. And when I leave, I have a better understanding, just like Jeffrey Goldberg did a couple of weeks ago, I have a better understanding of where Donald Trump is mentally, if Donald Trump is losing it, like people have said through the years or not. And so again, am I going to look at a clip that's gone viral and pay more attention to that than 2.5, 3 hours I had with a guy one-on-one going around the world? No, I'm just not going to. Are some of the clips bad? Yeah, they certainly are bad. I can understand why people would see that without the context.
Now, what his reference there to the context is the fact that he claims, whether this is true or not, that he had a meeting with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was fine. And so that what he is claiming here is that because you didn't see that in that one moment Joe Biden was fine, that means that you don't understand that he was at his best ever. You have been like the fact that we observed Joe Biden not fine all the time, everywhere. That somehow is out of context because, well, once in a meeting with Joe Scarborough, he was fine. And then to try to compare it to Trump, well, people say that Trump isn't fine. Yes, here's the difference. And once again, it is projection and the polar opposite. With Joe Biden, it was the insider Democrat that was saying he's perfectly fine, and the media, while everyone else was watching that he wasn't. So we all saw it. With Donald Trump, it is the same people who said Joe Biden was fine, the Democrat insiders and media that have said, well, something's wrong with Donald Trump. But see, all of us observe and see what he's doing, and we're like, no. In fact, he's more effective than any politician in existence right now. He's getting more things done that are meaningful. This I don't understand why anyone watches someone like Joe Scarborough, because I mean, I would think if you are a left-winger, you recognize that he's dishonest. The extreme left-wingers, they don't like him because he went to visit with Donald Trump after he tells his viewers, this guy's Hitler, he's the worst person ever, no one should normalize him, and then what does he immediately do? Oh, after the election, he goes and meets with him. So that segment of the population, he has demonstrated that he's dishonest with. People that are, and I would argue on the people that just want straightforward honesty. And if you believe that he is being honest and that he really did think that Joe Biden was just fine because of that one moment that he had a meeting with him, that means his judgment is so poor. Why would you listen to him about anything? And can we also address this position that, well, I thought he was fine because I saw him fine once, or because sometimes he was fine? Now, that is like saying if there's a couple, and out in public constantly the guy berates his wife, everyone sees it, calls her names, calls her fat, talks about how ugly she is, maybe even gets physically abusive with her once in a while. Everybody sees it. Everyone knows it. But you argue because once when you had a private conversation with him, he talked about how much he loved her, that meant he was actually the best husband ever. And if you, who have observed his actual behavior out in public, don't understand that, it's because you don't know the context of who this person really is. You don't know the fact that I've heard him talk about how much he loves his wife. That's the same as the argument some of these Democrats have made that, well, I thought he was fine because I saw him fine once in a while. There's, I think it was last night, a new assertion made about Biden that once again takes a situation, this is regarding the prostate cancer, and makes it seem even more unbelievable. The left has a real knack of doing this, whether it's James Comey or people surrounding Biden. They come out with some line that people go, that doesn't make sense. And they're like, well, actually this. And like, that makes it make even less sense. And that is something that has occurred when it comes to this prostate cancer thing. So the latest pronouncement from his people regarding that diagnosis. Coming up, I'm Nick Reed. The latest disclosure regarding Joe Biden and this announcement regarding his prostate cancer is that he had not taken the PSA test since his last one was 2014, which was a decade ago. This according to a Biden spokesperson. Even CNN, a CNN anchor, quote, he was president of the United States, didn't get tested. I find that very surprising. I don't think anybody believes this. Well, now again, because Donald Trump has declared that the timing of this doesn't seem right, that you go from not knowing or no cancer to all of a sudden have it this advanced. And so that requires the media to try and explain why Trump is wrong, which is the lesson. One of the lessons here is that the media does not, these people will never change. The media as we know it with these, what let's call it the traditional media, they're never going to change. If they haven't done the sort of self-reflection that one might think regarding the Biden cognitive thing and like right now when it comes to some of these other things, whether it's James Comey and the seashells or Joe Biden and the prostate cancer, and they're still, they would entertain believing these people, to even entertain the notion that they should be believed, teaches all of us that they are never going to change. It's why I believe that the fundamental change to what is Media in terms of information in this country is going to shift away from that, and increasingly people are going to get their information from podcasts and just more of these conversational stuff with real people who demonstrate that they're actually just interested in the truth. Yesterday played audio of that Andrew Schultz podcast with Bernie Sanders, and he was a Bernie bro back in 2016. Lifelong Democrat. But you wouldn't know it based off of the interview he did with Trump a year prior. Do you know why? Because he was just asked, he didn't have a political motive. He did not have an agenda other than, here's a guy that's running for president again, and I'm curious. I've got questions in my mind, genuine questions as an American. His goal wasn't to make people understand Donald Trump was bad. He was doing, and Joe Rogan's the same way, what the media used to do, where people once upon a time would read a newspaper article or turn on the nightly news and have no idea the political affiliation of the person giving them the news. Well, it's so obvious now. Yet they still run around claiming, no, we're not biased at all. We're not, okay. When it's very obvious who you support and who you don't, there's a reason that we can tell that. And I thought it was just really interesting to see that interview with Bernie Sanders from, I think his name Andrew Schultz. He wasn't anyone I was really familiar with. He's very big, very popular, huge following. But I became familiar with him when he had that podcast interview with Donald Trump. And I didn't know what his political affiliation was. I didn't get this impression that he was a huge fan of Trump, but I certainly didn't get any sort of inkling that he was a lifelong Democrat to the far left enough to where he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. That's how you know somebody is able to do their job professionally without letting their personal opinion steer them off of doing their job successfully. And it's just so perfect that the media likes to dismiss podcasters as not real journalists, not real news, when they're the ones who are actually providing the American people the service that journalists used to provide us with. And so, that I believe is just going to, we're slowly but surely, Americans' habits are changing to where those outlets may continue to exist forever and a day. You may still have NBC Nightly News and CBS Night, but that's not where people are going to get their information. And increasingly, they're not getting their information from those places. So yeah, the latest is, he hasn't had that PSA test since 2014, over 10 years. Now, some people will point out that recommendations have gone back and forth as to whether that test should even be done past a certain age. But what has been noted is that people who are in executive positions that are considered, their lives are considered instrumental to the direction of companies, for example, that part of just even their job is to get that test annually because it's recognized. And this is particularly done with like CEOs of big companies, that when it comes to the value of companies and what happens to stock and, the news of some sort of advanced cancer diagnosis can have a tremendous impact on the overall economic health of a company. And so because of that, it is not just common, but oftentimes required that people that are in those important executive positions get that test every single year, regardless of what recommendations are for the general public. And so the idea that the president of the most powerful country in the entire world doesn't have that same standard applied to him is something that most people just don't believe. And I happen to be one of them, unless, of course, they knew what the results were going to show and they wanted to keep that hidden as well. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. That's right. That's who we're talking about.
Actually, I was doing the part of the song.
Oh, well, you missed it.
Well, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, you missed it. Rude.
But Foreman does deserve a round of applause.
They do. Yes, they do. Nothing is worse than when something goes wrong at your home, and those pop-up repairs typically happen at the worst time. And with summer just right around the corner, I know at least one of you out there is going to have your AC just go out on the hottest day of the year. I don't want that for you. So that's why I want to recommend Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Whether you need just a simple AC tune-up, or maybe you're ready to upgrade to a new energy efficient unit, Foreman Mechanical, they've got you covered for all of your HVAC needs. They do residential services, commercial services, and they also offer a 24/7 emergency line. So get ahead of that summer heat with Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Schedule that appointment with Russell and his crew today. Now you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
With the cancer diagnosis of Joe Biden, there was a lot of what ifs, and the point being made that if this were a diagnosis of Donald Trump, the left, of course, would be horrifically brutal and inhumane and celebrating it. And it's just denoting the difference in the quality of person that you find with conservatives versus those on the left, generally speaking. And it's not one size fits all, but generally this is the case. But what I think is that there actually are people out there that are celebrating on social media his cancer diagnosis and wishing him horrific pain in his final days. They're lefties. I mean, even I'm telling you, these people are just bad people. One of them is Taylor Lorenz. Now, she's the former Washington Post columnist, and she's still used all the time. What was it? I was watching a documentary. Oh, that documentary on young social media influencers. You had mentioned it to me. She was in that. She was oftentimes, they went to her to sort of give her insight into young social media stuff. And she used to work for the Washington Post. She's a left-wing journalist. Do you know what she wrote on X about Joe Biden? Because a lot of these people are the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party, and they felt he didn't do enough to help eliminate the Jews and so forth. This is her quote. Hopefully he rots in hell and rests in piss. This is what she said about Joe Biden.
What are the comments on that? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably, well, that some are probably right there with her. Former Bernie Sanders campaign surrogate wrote, quote, "Never in my life have I cared less about someone having an aggressive form of cancer than I do about Joe Biden." This is a Bernie Sanders surrogate. He went on to say, "I hate him. He's a genocidal monster, and I hope his final days are painful." Leftist streamer Hassan Piker said, quote, "The mainstream media is already actively laundering the reputation of a war criminal who oversaw the genocide of Palestinians whose selfish nature allowed Trump to win a second term." Now, there have been some on the right that have, he went on to say Joe Biden's an awful monster. Prostate cancer doesn't change that. Now, there have been some on the right who have noted, and it's not criticism of Joe Biden, that the media will attempt and have attempted to use this in order to say you can't criticize him any longer and, try to use this as cover. But I just thought it was hilarious that not only we don't, this comparison like, well, if this were Trump, you knew the left would say all sorts of horrible things. You have the left saying horrible things about Biden on this. They're just bad people. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show, everyone. You know, Memorial Day coming up. A lot of Memorial Day deals, especially if you want a mattress or a car. Pinnaker Honda, some of the best deals you're going to find. And I wanted to share with you what Mark said recently. His review of our friends over there at Pinnaker Honda. Afton, our sales consultant, was fantastic. 3 exclamation points. Not 1, not 2, 3. No pressure, but spent all the time we needed with us, really listened to us. She was able to find us just what we wanted to meet our needs. Josh, the business manager, made financing painless. Justin, the product specialist, got us all checked out on how all things on our new car worked. Overall experience, 15 out of 10. That's not even how numbers work. That's how awesome it was.
Gee.
15 out of 10?
Afton really sold it.
Yeah, he certainly did. That's right. 0.99% financing. Select certified pre-owned Hondas. You can't beat that low rate on a pre-owned vehicle. And then also active military, U.S. military discounts there. And new car purchase gets you free gas for the summer with Pinnaker Honda. They got all sorts of other great things going on there. They're creative people. They like to keep it fun. And Fridays, they have a food truck on site. Brand new facility there as well. It's awesome. I went to the grand opening. It's really cool. And they are great people. That's why I recommend them to you. My truck, well before we became partners, that's where I purchased my most recent truck, was from the Pinnaker family. And you can see the reviews because, oftentimes, car lots and dealers and, salespeople, they don't get the best reputation. And so it makes it all that much more refreshing and incredible when you find people that do. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. You remember how there was a period of time when the White House was releasing these videos of Joe Biden and it had all the cuts in it?
Oh, yes.
I think it seemed like the first one was a Super Bowl message that he sent, and we're like, why are all these cuts? And there were 2 explanations. One is that it was trying to have a certain look, I guess, sort of cool and edgy, but no one really bought that because it didn't do that. Most people believed it's because he couldn't get through a sentence without stumbling through it, forgetting what he was talking about. And so the only way that they could, no matter how hard they worked with him, how many chances they gave him, the only way that they could actually produce anything that was coherent was to splice it up that way. So the reason I mention that is because this is from The Hill, and it's referencing the new book from Tapper and Thompson, noting that they also reported Biden increasingly relied on teleprompters and note cards even for private discussions like cabinet meetings. Quote, before these meetings, White House staff called the various departments and agencies to figure out what they were going to ask the president so that answers could be prepared. The conversations were largely scripted even after the press had left the room. When a group would ask Biden to record a 5-minute address for keynoting on an event, the White House usually responded that the video would actually be 1 to 2 minutes, but Biden still struggled with even that. Quote, to compensate for that, aides filmed Biden with 2 cameras instead of 1. If Biden messed up, the edit was less obvious with a jump cut, they reported. Other politicians used jump cuts, but Biden aides noted to themselves how much more often they had to use them for the president. So, this is yet again validation for those of us that have been called right-wing conspiracy theorists and those of us that were peddling an ageism and that were falling into the deep fakes, that what we speculated, and this was well before the campaign that this was occurring, that these jump cuts were happening because it was the only way they could piece together anything that was coherent, that is exactly what was going on. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert
There,
forecast.
there we got our outro.
Yeah.
That was a nice, tight little outro.
It's like he heard us.
He did.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 75. Tonight, a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking at Friday, a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 72.
Turnpike Troubadours and Treaty Oak Revival. Thunder Ridge Nature Arena coming up Saturday, August 30th. Why do I tell you this? Well, you have a chance to win tickets. And you can do that by going to ksgf.com. That's also where we have the contact information for the Great Escape. Last update I got was from Cam at the travel group, and that update was there was only one junior suite left. And locked into that is primarily because of the airplane. Obviously, the resort has a tremendous amount of rooms available. It's not that there's only one room available left in the entire resort, but there are only 2 seats left on our flight that we all go on. And so that's where the real limitation is. That being said, if you don't get that reservation, if you miss out on it, of course, we always have a reserve list. So if somebody drops out, is unable to go, then you can fill their slot. But in addition to that, Cam can arrange, if you want, separate flight, and the cost, I'm sure, will be different because of that. But that is something that is possible. However, I recommend that you just get signed up with the costs that are available now, and that way you're able to travel with us, and it just makes it that much more fun, in my opinion, anyhow. And she's going to be leaving the country for a couple of weeks on Saturday. I recommend that if you're even thinking about it, you give her a call today or send her an email today and let her know that you want that slot to be yours, because only one of you listening right now is going to get it. And I know that there are going to be some of you that end up deciding, oh, we'll give it a try, but it's going to be too late. And I don't want you to be sad. But I guess inevitably somebody's going to be. Make it not be you. KSGF.com, you can find the Great Escape information there. Which, incidentally, I did find out, to the point, that one of the couples who is going on a Great Escape is from, I think, Omaha. Yeah, they're. I think it's Omaha. Yeah, they are friends with one of the local couples that's going. So yeah, it's always fun to have people that are. I know we've talked about. There were some from California that have. I think the last time we went to Dominican Republic, they came along, and
My best friend from Oklahoma.
Yes, that's right. The very first one we did, there were some folks from Florida that came along. I want to say Michigan or Minnesota on one of the trips I remember. Usually it's friends that people that are friends with people who are here local, and it's just always fun. I think I don't know, I like that. I wanted to mention to you an event, or I guess you could call it a rally, a protest that is going to be coming up. And this isn't political, or at least I think it's not considered political for most people. Many of you are familiar with Operation Soap. Operation Soap, we have had some of their members on this program before. They have been in the news. They are a group of individuals that, in an effort to bring light and awareness to sexual predators of minors in the area, they create social media accounts that are set up to appear as if they are underage kids. They aren't real people, obviously. It's not like they recruit some 14-year-old girl to set up a site. These are adults that do this, and then they just let it sit there. They don't contact men. They let it sit there, and inevitably what happens is you get a predator that will start messaging this account, believing that they are messaging an underage person, and then they start to get more graphic, and the patterns tend to follow the exact same. Like, eventually, how old are you? Oh, you're too young for me. We should try. And then, easing into it, and then getting sexually explicit, and then asking for photos and sharing photos, and here's what I want to do to you. It's all stuff. There's no gray area. It becomes very, very clear that the intent of these individuals, and they eventually then oftentimes ask if they can meet up. And then when they go to the meeting place, wherever it is, a gas station or Walmart or a parking lot somewhere, instead of this fictitious underage person that shows, they expect to show up, it is the people who run the site. And they confront them. They don't confront them in a physical manner, but just, hey, what? And they film it live, in fact. And then they turn that information over to law enforcement, and they generally, as a rule, try to give law enforcement a heads up that this is going to occur. The concept of this is something most people are familiar with. I would say it goes all the way back to, I don't know, maybe the 90s, the Catch a Predator, which became a very popular television series based off this exact same premise. They'd have cameras set up, and it would be... I forget his name. Every time I talk about this, I forget his name, and we look it up, but that doesn't really matter. And so anyway, this isn't a new concept. These individuals in particular have created quite a following, and I think some of it is because people are shocked how many of these predators there are in the area, and this is part of why they do what they do, is to raise this awareness. Along the way, they have discovered that while some counties are very accommodating in terms of receiving the information from Operation Soap and then utilizing that in order to charge these individuals with attempts to have sex with minors, there are some counties that are not accommodating at all. They've called out Greene County specifically. Their as they've expressed it, interpretation is that Greene County has said, well, we can't use that, that we aren't able to use any information that you gather. They argue, well, other counties are, so clearly it is possible. I know that they were in the news because of a back and forth with Lebanon in Laclede County. So the point being is there are varying degrees of cooperation, if you will, amongst some jurisdictions. All that being said, there was an incident, and this was another one in which they had set up a fake account, and then there was an individual that was an adult, reached out to the account, wanted to meet with what they thought was an underage person, and it was, very clear what the intent was and so forth. And like they always do, they turned over that information to the appropriate authorities in Cedar County. And what the upcoming event is a I don't know if you would say rally. It is an event in which they are asking people to show up to demonstrate that they want the local prosecutor to do something about this, when the local prosecutor has indicated that he is not going to do anything about it. So I want to read to you. Now, Operation Soap is not the one that is putting on or arranging this event, though they did share the information on their social media site. Now, on Operation Soap's site, back on April 14th, they posted the following about this adult that they had filmed showing up thinking that he was going to be having sex with a child. April 14th, they posted, "I spoke with the detective last week who informed me that the case has been turned over to the Cedar County prosecutor, Ty Gaither, and advised me to follow up with him directly. I reached out to Cedar County prosecutor Ty Gaither, introduced myself, and inquired about any updates on the case. His only response was, quote, 'It's on my desk,' which he repeated 3 times. He was notably short with me during the call. I asked if his response was due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, and he confirmed that it was. While I understand the need for confidentiality, a direct and respectful response from the start would have been more appropriate and efficient. The case has now been sitting on his desk for quite some time, and it's beginning to feel like it's being ignored again. I wish I had better news to share, but considering the prosecutor's close relationship with Cole's father — Cole is the person that showed up believing they were going to be hooking up with a minor. Given the prosecutor's close relationship with Cole's father, this lack of progress is sadly not surprising. We saw something similar happen back in 2017 with Cole's first rape case, and it appears history is repeating itself." On May 19th, they posted, "Cedar County prosecutor Ty Gaither has officially declined to take action in the case involving Cole Watson of Stockton, Missouri, despite overwhelming evidence presented on behalf of all of the victims and backed up by local detectives and law enforcement. This decision has raised serious concerns not only among residents of Stockton and Cedar County, but also among parents everywhere who believe the justice system must protect children and hold all individuals accountable regardless of personal connections. We personally believe, in our opinion, justice should never be selective, nor appear to be influenced by favoritism or external monetary factors. If you agree, we encourage you to respectfully contact Mr. Gaither's office to make your voice heard." Now, if you've ever visited Operation Soap site, you know that they also are very, very adamant about making sure everyone understands that in America, that you are innocent until proven guilty. And what it is that they are promoting here is the fact they're not saying that this guy is guilty. They're saying the evidence is clearly here for what they believe is a no-brainer for prosecution. And the problem they have is that they say that this particular county prosecutor is just refusing to do anything despite this person's history and what they see as a personal relationship with the family of the accused. So there has been a posting shared by Operation Soap that says, "Let your voice be heard. We're tired of Ty Gaither enabling child abuse and sexual exploitation. Cedar County Courthouse, duration 4 hours, anyone, on or off Facebook. We want justice. There's a bulletproof case against the accused, yet Cedar County prosecutor Ty Gaither declined any further action on the case. The women and underage children in this case deserve to feel seen. What if this were your daughter? Let's stand for what is right." And then they've got the time listed, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Now, by the way, incidentally, I'm not sharing this information to promote it for the sake of promoting it or telling people to go out there. But this is an organization that, again, we've had on the program, and there have been numerous news stories about this organization, and they've been vocal about what they feel is part of the problem that feeds into the child exploitation that occurs in this area is the lack of prosecution by some jurisdictions. And now there is, at least to my knowledge, the first sort of call, not by them, but by someone based off of their exposure of this stuff going on, for people to actually show up and calling out a county prosecutor over something like this. So I think this is, I don't want to use the word escalation, but I think that this is new territory for the entire situation and the relationship between the citizens, the observers and followers of Operation SOAP, and a specific prosecutor. They've been very open about calling some of these jurisdictions out as not being helpful, and also highlighting those who have been, and the inconsistencies between counties that say, well, we can't do anything, versus those that say, they say, well, look, they do, so why can't you? And so I don't know if this is going to get standard news coverage or not. I could very well see it getting some news coverage, particularly depending on the size of the turnout, if there is one of any significance. But this is just, it seems to be leveling up a bit in terms of the interaction between the public and the people who are charged with prosecuting individuals that are accused of committing crimes. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up after we do traffic and weather, there's another local story involving a lawsuit that I wanted to share with you. It involves a come and go. But regarding Operation SOAP, one of the arguments, I guess, that sometimes people use in opposition to what they do is that, well, what they're doing is entrapment. No. Entrapment is pretty specific, and in fact, there have been numerous people that have been convicted, arrested, charged, and convicted because of operations like this. Now, there are oftentimes instances in which prosecutors say they can't use it, but not because of entrapment purposes. There seems to be a misunderstanding as to exactly what entrapment is, and so I will explain that coming up in just a couple of moments. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 75. Tonight a 50% chance of showers between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. with a low around 54. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking at to Friday, a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 72.
I don't want to get too in the weeds on the Operation Soap and entrapment thing because we've talked about this before, but I understand why, just because sometimes media coverage, people think, well, what they're doing is entrapment. Even prosecutors that will not utilize the information gathered by people like those involved in Operation Soap, everything I've heard them explain and say it's not because of entrapment. Now, sometimes they argue that, well, we can't use evidence that is gathered in that way. But, again, their argument is, well, prosecutors in this county did, and they were successful at doing it. In an outfit like Operation Soap, and this hopefully explains the difference, in order to highlight and bring attention to the fact that there are predators in the area, they will set up a fake social media account of a person that doesn't actually exist, and 14-year-old girl or whatever. Now they don't go then find and friend random men out there looking to create a scenario to draw them in by offering up sex or by that's not what they do. They sit there, and inevitably what happens is these people will friend request the fake account thinking it's an underage person, and they are the ones that make the advances. They are the ones that, without any outside influence, take things to an inappropriate place. That is not entrapment. People think entrapment means that, like if it's fake or set up in order to trap some person, that means entrapment. Entrapment, now, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm going based off of just what prosecutors, those who do use this evidence and those who don't use evidence, say. Entrapment would be a situation where, let's say, I work for the government. I'm an undercover cop. And I'm on a task force to try to catch people like this. And I, set up a fake site. And then I befriend somebody. And I start talking to that guy about how, some of these girls, they sure don't act 14. And they're like, dude, that's wrong. That's perverted. But I keep working on them and convince them that it's really not that bad. And then I, hey, we should start friending. And you drag them along to do something. You convince them to do something that they would have otherwise never done. And that is along the lines of entrapment, where you convince someone. You are the instigator. You are the person who convinced them to do this. And that's not what To Catch a Predator does or Operation Soap does. Some will say, yeah, but they're the ones who set up the fake account. Well, the fake account didn't cause some 35-year-old man to seek it out thinking it was an underage girl and then try to have sex with that imaginary underage girl. That's not what made that person do that. They were seeking it on their own. They were out there, they saw this site, they chose, without any sort of influence pushing them to contact that person, they chose to start flirting with that underage person. They chose to start sending dirty pictures to that person. This was all on their own. So that's the difference between the two. And some people still don't like that these, individuals operate in this fashion. They call it vigilantism. I don't agree with that that description as well. But but in terms of that whole idea that, well, this is entrapment, that's not the argument. Even again amongst that I've heard thus far from prosecutors who say, well, we can't use that evidence. It's not because of entrapment purposes. Now, here's the story. Man sues Springfield store manager, come and go for personal injury after shooting incident. I happen to believe that this is wrong. I'm just going to read to you the story from Ozarks First about how this played out. A man is suing Come and Go, and a woman, they're suing Come and Go and a woman who was a Come and Go store manager in Springfield after a 2020 shooting incident left the man with damages. According to the 6-count petition filed in Greene County Circuit Court Tuesday, May 20th, Christopher Williams, who is the suit's petitioner, and his girlfriend stopped at a Come and Go on Kansas Expressway September 19, 2020 to buy drinks and rent a movie. Before Williams and his girlfriend headed to the gas station, an unknown man had driven his vehicle to the business and, while armed with a 9mm pistol and wearing a mask covering his nose and mouth, entered the store, purchased cigars, left the building, and loitered in his car. The petition states that after Williams entered the back of the gas station by Come and Go's dilapidated car wash, the masked man sped by in a vehicle and almost collided with him. He shouted at Williams and made large gestures at him. Williams thought the driver was in distress and stopped to see if he needed help, but became afraid after the armed man began making threats at him and refusing to take his hands out of his pockets, according to the petition. Williams' girlfriend moved to the driver's seat of the vehicle, or driver's side of his vehicle. Williams backed towards the car and told his girlfriend to drive off, but the masked man aimed the gun at Williams as he was backing away and shot Williams at least twice with the handgun, resulting in gunshot wounds in Williams' lower left abdomen, right back, and left hip. The masked, armed man ran back to his car and fled the scene, the petition says. Williams suffered serious personal injuries, including gunshot wounds, permanent impairment, lost wages, medical expenses, and more, per the petition. Now, the petition alleges that Come and Go was negligent in several factors, including that the lighting near the scene of the shooting was burned out or otherwise non-functional, the car wash was dilapidated, unused, abandoned, and unlit. So, and no security was present on site, and no warning about criminal activity or risk of crime were posted at the entrance of the property. Come and Go should have allegedly known about ongoing criminal activity on its property, as evidenced by law enforcement reports, internal reports, and local, city, and federal crime data, the petition says. Despite the fact that multiple crimes of violence had occurred at this Come and Go's premises over the year, the store and its manager, Zena Robinson, quote, took no meaningful action to improve safety conditions for its business's invitees. The suit alleges Robinson knew, this is the manager of the Come and Go, knew or should have known that the exterior lighting near the car wash and near the area Williams was shot had been inoperable for weeks or months, creating a blind spot for cameras and degrading the quality of video surveillance. Additionally, the suit alleges Robinson failed to implement or request minimal preventative measures such as signage discouraging loitering, security cameras aimed at the car wash, or hiring security services to patrol or guard the store. Ultimately, 5 counts of the petition allege Come and Go was negligent, failed to warn of a dangerous condition, maintained premises liability, had negligent security, and failed to warn patrons that the store premises had a high risk of crime. 1 count alleges that the manager breached her duty of reasonable care to Williams by failing to conduct security inspections, failing to address a known history of violent crime, and more, according to the petition. The lawsuit asked for an unspecified amount of damages. Williams is represented by Douglas, Hahn, and Heidemann of Springfield. Now, we do have to take a quick break, but I just want to share some thoughts on this lawsuit coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, we once again have more storms in the forecast, and these storms will hit the western portion of the listening area this evening. Now, the National Weather Service, they say that there's a good chance for heavy rainfall, hail, and strong winds. So if you are along I-44 west of Springfield or south of 60, you may see these storms tonight. And if you experience any type of damage to your roof, don't go at it alone. Make sure to call Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. From residential to commercial to metal roofing, simple roof repairs, full roof replacements, and gutters, the Pyramid team, they do it all. So if you experience any type of roofing issues whatsoever, give the Pyramid Roofing Company team a call. Now you can find all of the contact information for Josh and his crew under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's Ozark's first story, and it is revolving. It involves a man suing Come and Go, and the manager of the Come and Go at the time, from an incident back in 2020, in which the person doing the suing had interaction with another individual that essentially, long story short, shot him, and so the manager and Come and Go is getting sued because they didn't have signs up basically saying, hey, just so you know, you could get shot. This is a high crime area. That the manager did not take upon herself the steps of hiring security in order to patrol the parking lot. This is the Come and Go on Kansas Expressway, where the railroad tracks are. It's south of Chestnut Expressway. It's the first one that you would hit on the right-hand side. And I forget what that cross street is.
College, maybe?
Is it? Yeah, it's somewhere around.
Yeah.
It actually, there's two cross streets there because it's essentially between two. And it's got that abandoned car wash.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if abandoned's the right word, but it's inoperable. It's not being used any longer. And so the lawsuit against Come and Go and the manager is that, hey, you should have hired somebody to patrol this area or given me a heads up that there's high crime area here, that at any particular time I could be shot by this person, and you should have had better lighting because, or a sign saying no loitering. These are all of the different reasons that this individual claims Come and Go and this manager should be financially responsible for this other person shooting him. I believe this is a large part of what is wrong with some parts of this country and increasingly Springfield as well. And that is that crime becomes so prevalent that you have, even the victims of crime becoming double victims. Come and Go is just as much. I mean, this manager, to me, they are in a different way, but also victims of the increased crime that we see in this area. And you have culturally a lack of faith in the system taking care of things, and so citizens begin to turn on each other, or they take advantage of a broken system in which, the system seems to be more willing to go after other law-abiding citizens and actual criminals. It's just a culture of people not having faith in the system. Now, I know many people will see this and think, well, this is somebody that's just out for money. Now, you can never mind read. You can speculate based off of the factual information that is available. I don't think it's unreasonable for a person to see a situation like this play out and believe that this is just about taking advantage of the situation and trying to get money because of it. This desire that we sometimes have, even outside observers, to so we want justice, and because the justice system isn't going to hold the actual person accountable, who else can we go after? Oh, well, how about Come and Go? How about this manager? Now think about where you work, for instance. Everyone's different. And just imagine that one day somebody in the parking lot of wherever it is that you work, and maybe you're the manager of the place or you're a shift supervisor, and there's a horrific crime that takes place, somebody gets shot, and then finding out you're being sued for it. Because they say, well, you should have helped prevent this from happening. And you're like, I'm not law enforcement, I'm not a prosecutor. In particular, I think this is awful. And I know a lot of people, when companies get sued, they're like, oh, what difference does it make? It's just some big company. The insurance will pay it out. But here you have, and I don't know this person, but you've got some manager of a place that's going and working in an area, and if it's at nighttime, this person probably themselves every day just to make a paycheck, just to support herself, if she has family, if she has kids, I don't know, but her every day finding herself in a potentially dangerous situation. She's doing what she can to make a living, to get by, and then find out that she's the target of a lawsuit because some criminal shot someone in the parking lot? I think it's easy a lot of times for people to be like, well, I guess that's their responsibility, until you start thinking about, well, what if that were your place of employment? And some random person shot another random person, and then all of a sudden somebody was saying, oh, now you are the one who should have prevented this from happening. Not only you should have. This was your job. You were so negligent, you need to pay out because of it. You need to be punished. I just think that's wrong. And here you have this person that, based off the information that's available, the manager of this store, that is being made a victim in all of this, in addition to the victims that were already created. Now, all that being said, I'm suspicious anyhow. Let me reread to you what the circumstances surrounding this, according to Ozarks First. You had, this is according to the 6-count petition filed in Greene County Circuit Court. You got Christopher Williams, the petitioner, and his girlfriend stopped at the Come and Go to buy drinks and rent a movie. This was 2020. I don't rent a movie. Oh, it's probably Redbox at that time. Before Williams and his girlfriend headed to the gas station, an unknown man had driven his vehicle to the business, and while armed with a 9mm pistol and wearing a mask covering his nose and mouth, entered the store, purchased cigars, left the building, and loitered in his car. The petition states that after Williams entered the back of the gas station by Come and Go's dilapidated car wash, the masked man sped by in a vehicle and almost collided with Williams. He shouted at Williams and made a large gesture at him. Williams thought the driver was in distress and stopped to see if he needed help, but became afraid after the armed man began making threats at him and refusing to take his hands out of his pocket, according to the petition, and then that's when eventually the shooting occurred. Now, everyone's different. But if you're in the parking lot of a gas station at night in an area that you believe to be somewhat sketchy, and a masked man in a vehicle erratically drives by you, almost hits you, is shouting at you and making large gestures at you, is your instinct going to be, oh, I better check on that person. I think something's wrong with him? Just speculating. This, if you try to, you think about how humans actually behave, what to me seems like a more reasonable scenario, though I wasn't there, is that this person, the shooter, drove by, almost hit this guy, and it, again, in my mind, what would oftentimes occur is the person who was almost hit and was yelled at and screamed at by this person wearing a mask, that person would get mouthy and try and chase him down. Things would escalate. It would turn into a fight, and then, the original guy has a gun and shoots him. It just seems very unlikely to me in this sort of particular situation that the reason the individual ended up getting shot was because he thought, well, that person seems like someone in distress. I'd better go over there and see if I can help him. Just seems a little fishy to me, but I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone. Hey, weather's nice. You're mowing your lawn, you're back there, and I want you to think about how that space that you've paid for, that expensive piece of land, even though it may just be 1/4 of an acre or something, that is wasted space. That could be an addition to your home. I'm not talking inside, but I'm talking outdoor oasis living space. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, they can do that for you from design to completion. Premier, top of the line. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill company that's going to be there in 2 weeks, and they've got a rotating crew of people, and they do a number of different jobs, and this is one of them. This is the focus. These are top level. They do some of the most incredible work in the area, and so if you're planning on wanting something ready for fall, I recommend that you contact them today, and you can get an idea on their site. There's sort of an estimate calculator, just to give you a basic ballpark of what you're looking at in terms of investment in order to make such a fantastic improvement for your home. That site is hunterhardscapes.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Hope you have a wonderful day, everyone. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.